What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we're chatting with Shawn Coleman from Locked On Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies are likely to be without their star point guard, Ja Morant, for Game 4 of this series against the Golden State Warriors after what was possibly a dirty play by the Warriors' Jordan Poole in Game 3. Is the situation being made out worse than it actually is? And what are the Grizzlies' chances without Ja in Game 4? But first, a quick message from our friends over at Built Bars, because when it comes to protein bars, you got to check out Built Bar. They're the number one protein bar on the market. They've got so many incredible flavors to choose from. You got raspberry, strawberry, mint brownie, salted caramel, cookies and cream, coconut brownie chunks, the number one bar that they have. That's my personal favorite. But you really can't go wrong with a single bar on their menu. Every single bar is low cal, low sugar, high protein, high fiber. Amazing if you're on a keto diet. Amazing if you're trying to cut back a little bit, lose a little bit of weight. You can check them out. Just go to built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your very next order of the best tasting protein bars on the market. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Joining us now is Shawn Coleman from Locked On Grizzlies. You can follow on Twitter at StatsSAC. Now, Shawn, Shams Charania unfortunately reporting that Ja Morant is likely to miss Game 4 of this series between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors after a lot of scrutiny regarding the incident taking place in this most recent game between these two teams with Jordan Poole in Game 3, where Poole kind of reached in, grabbed Morant's knee, maybe pulled it back a little bit as Morant was making his move. Ja went on Twitter right after the game and tweeted out, quote unquote, broke the code. Taylor Jenkins was maybe making some accusations after the game, with the play at hand. This series has had a lot of, extracurricular activities, if you will, ejections, physical, borderline dangerous plays, suspensions, and now this. So first things first, Shawn, in your mind, was this a dirty play? Do you think the reactions from Ja, Taylor Jenkins and company were warranted given, what took place on the floor?
So I don't think it was a dirty play. I don't think that any of these plays that have occurred, the Draymond flagrant in Game 1, the Dillon Brooks flagrant in Game 2, this incident with Jordan in Game 3, I think there were different levels of recklessness, probably not the intent. I don't think anyone had the intent of injuring anyone. It's just that unfortunately we've had a play every single game. And to add to it, you've had the reactions in the, emotional reactions right after the games from coaches, from players, and things like that. It's all part of the game, and it's all feeding into it. So to answer your question directly, no, I do not think the play that happened with Jordan Poole was in any way, shape, or form dirty. I think that it was unfortunate. I do think that was what caused Ja to likely miss Game 4, and unfortunately, those types of things happens. But the significance of it is added to by what obviously has already occurred in this series. So it's just, to be honest with you, Jackson, and there's led to a lot of back and forth between both fan bases, even back and forth between media and things like that. I'm just, to be honest on my end, I'm a bit exhausted by it. Taylor Jenkins has every right to protect his players. Ja has every right, obviously, to react as he wants. But at the end of the day, I'm just simply wanting this to get back to basketball. And now, unfortunately, the Grizzlies are going to have to navigate at least Game 4 without their best player.
Getting back to basketball is what this should be about, but you mentioned kind of some of the back and forth between these two fan bases, and I wonder if Shawn, maybe there's a bit of a double standard at play here, almost with some of the reactions from Warriors fans, from Warriors media, even the Bay Area media, kind of brushing the situation off as if it's nothing, just one game removed from the Dillon Brooks, Gary Payton situation, which had Warriors fans, maybe rightfully so, up in arms about how that play really kind of worked its way out, and again, this really changes the complexion of the series. Now, obviously, Gary Payton and Ja Morant, different levels of player here, but maybe there's a bit of a double standard at play here when you look at the reactions from the fans regarding all of this.
Sure, and it may be a bit magnified in this situation where, you typically don't see 3 games in a row this significant of a extracurricular type play. Again, I'm not saying that Jordan Poole's was that, but it was a play that led to the injury of another player. It's been 3 straight games where we've seen this, and you're always going to get bias from fan bases. They're going to favor their team, and sometimes a double standard may occur. I don't necessarily think that in and of itself is egregious. I do think that some of the other things out there on Twitter and things like that have been, but that's a story for another time. But when it comes to the double standard and things like that, I get fan bases wanting to be biased towards their own rosters, their own players. I get coaches wanting to be able to protect their own players, being there to make sure that their team is not in any way, shape, or form being painted in an unjust light. But at the end of the day, double standard or not, all in all, the thing that needs to happen, especially on the Grizzlies side of things, is they can't keep getting caught, or not that they have been, they can't get caught up in the extra stuff, because now they're down 2-1. They've got a very critical game in game 4. They're going to be without their best player. They've got plenty of other things to focus on instead of things outside of basketball.
Now, even if now it's still, unfortunately it's not confirmed yet. So there's still like that slim chance that Ja does play game 4. But right now it's looking like they will be without their star player for game 4. Now, if the Grizzlies are indeed without Ja, that doesn't necessarily spell defeat. This is a Grizzlies team that found quite a lot of success in this past season, despite missing their star point guard, for a significant stretch. So how do the Grizzlies change without Morant on the floor, over the course of an entire 48-minute game, Shawn?
Oh, it absolutely starts on the defensive end of the ball. And you're right. They did find a lot of success in being able to play without Morant, but they did it by playing their style of basketball, producing in the paint, producing turnovers, rebounds, extra possessions, getting out on the run. The Warriors are kicking the Grizzlies' butt in every one of those areas so far this game. So you're not just adding to the fact that you're going to be without a player who's given you 38 points of production himself over the past 3 games. You're now going to have to climb the mountain of figuring out how without him you get back to playing your style of basketball. But it starts on the defensive end. The Grizzlies allowed far too many good open looks. The Warriors converted far too many of them in game 3. With Dillon Brooks coming back, with Steven Adams likely to get a little bit of playing time this game, the Grizzlies are going to have to make the Warriors as many times as possible work for their shots. The Grizzlies are going to have to win the rebounding edge, and the Grizzlies are going to have to use ball movement, especially with the decision-making of Tyus Jones being featured now. They're going to have to make the right passes consistently as possible, but the player who's going to have to come back and play in a very effective game is Dillon Brooks on both ends of the court.
It feels like the Steve Kerr and the Warriors have kind of made Memphis play their style of game, right? Going small, effectively running, arguably no center lineups at times. You can make the argument maybe Draymond is out there, but obviously he's a lot smaller, able to play on the perimeter for all intents and purposes. Do you think there's maybe a card up Taylor Jenkins' sleeve to just say, you know what? We're just, instead of going to trying to play your game, maybe we'll just throw out like our size and really see if that's an advantage that he can try and get, moving forward into this next game of the series.
Absolutely. That's the thing that's really right now hurting the Grizzlies. Coming into this series, you knew that the strength when it came to shooting from distance was on the Golden State Warriors end. You assumed that when it came to producing in the paint, it was on the Grizzlies end. The rebounding was on the Grizzlies end. But the Grizzlies have tried 20 more three-point shots than the Warriors. The problem is that they're not making anywhere, they're not making a significant amount more. The Warriors have outscored the Grizzlies 178 to 130 in the paint. The big story in this series so far, Jackson, the Warriors are shooting 61% inside the arc, the Grizzlies 47%. The Warriors have 92 assists to the Grizzlies 64. I don't mean to turn this into a stats conversation, but my point is that the Warriors are doing a much better job using ball movement to find the best shot possible. With Dillon Brooks back, the Grizzlies are going to have to make it a lot harder on the Warriors to be able to do that. And then to your point, the ace up the sleeve is getting the ball movement going to where they can find a way to score in the paint and then allow for themselves to be able to find some good open looks from 3 and actually convert them.
Well, seeing as how your Twitter handle is stats SAC, I'd be disappointed if you didn't try and turn this into a stats conversation, Shawn. But final point here before we let you go, with this, very pivotal game 4, obviously down 2-1 in the series, you got to try to even things up here if you're Memphis. What can Memphis do better to slow down the absurd trio of Steph, Klay, and Jordan Poole, who combined for 78 points in game 3?
The thing is to make them work for every shot. Now, I know that that's a lot easier said than done, but the Grizzlies did do at least I would say a decent job of it of games 1 and 2. Now, the Warriors made only 39% of their open shots in game 2. They made 67% of their open shots in game 3. I would likely venture to guess they'll probably hit around 45 to 50 in game 3 if things kind of regress and go normal. But my point is that the Grizzlies did a very good job of scrambling, rotating, what have you, when they had Dillon Brooks in the lineup in games 1 and 2. They need to get back. You're not going to be able to stop all 3. But at the very least, if you can contest as many of those 3 individual shots, if you can make them work hard for their 3 shots, that is something the Grizzlies can do with their lineups. That is number one. But the second thing is winning the possession battle. Not only trying to find the best shot possible on offense as many times down the court as possible, but limiting the second chance opportunities for the Warriors and getting your own second chance opportunities. Those 2 things are going to be what's critical for the Grizzlies to win game 4 without Ja.
Will the Grizzlies be without Ja in game 4? And if they are without Ja, can they pull off the win and even the series at 2 games apiece? You're going to have us covered for all of that and more, of course, over at Locked On Grizzlies. Shawn, appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Pleasure as always, Jackson. Have a great one, sir.